3 seconds ago, something knocked on your door. You didn't hear it, but it heard you, and now it knows you're home. The witching hour is not a metaphor. It is not folklore. It is not a poetic device invented by people who are afraid of the dark. It is a deadline, a contractual obligation written into the architecture of time itself. Most people believe 3 a.m. is simply the moment when the veil between worlds runs thin, when the dead press their faces against the membrane of the living and breathe. They are wrong. 3 a.m. is when the debt is collected. My name is Elias, and for 3 years I have survived by one rule, a single unbreakable commandment that I have followed with a discipline bordering on religious: never acknowledge the sound at the door. It doesn't matter if it's a gentle tap, the kind that sounds almost tender, like a bird's beak against glass. It doesn't matter if it builds into something that shakes the hinges from the frame, something that sounds like a battering ram, something that sounds like the door itself is screaming. You do not look through the peephole. You do not check your security feed. You do not call out from behind the wood. And God help you. God help you. You never ask, who is it? Hard. Pause. 3 full seconds of silence. Because at exactly 3:30 a.m., the thing standing on the other side of that door is not a person. It is a reflection of a choice you haven't made yet. A version of your own future, walking backward through time to collect the seconds you've already wasted. Every moment you've spent in fear. Every minute you've burned doing nothing. Every hour you told yourself you'd start over tomorrow. It wants those back. Last night, the knock didn't come from my front door. It came from the headboard of my bed, 3 inches from the back of my skull. Knock, knock, knock. Rhythmic, hollow, intimate, like something using my own bones as a drum, playing a song that was written before I was born. And then, from the pitch-black corner of my room, the sound of a heavy metal zipper. Slow, deliberate, opening. Something was stepping out of the dark, and it was wearing my face like a mask that didn't quite fit. Music. Sting. The hook lands. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you about this apartment, about this landlord, about what lives inside the walls of apartment 4C, it didn't start last night. It started the moment I signed the lease, and I'm going to prove to you that it may have already started for you. I moved into apartment 4C 3 years ago. The rent was the first sign I should have walked away. $500 a month for a pre-war flat in the heart of the city. High ceilings, crown molding, a view of the skyline that looked like something from a dream. In a city where a broom cupboard rents for $2,000 a month, I told myself I'd simply gotten lucky. That is what it wants you to think. The landlord's name was Mr. Thorne. He was a man who looked as though he'd been left out in the rain for 40 years and simply dried that way. Skin the color of old parchment, eyes that were fixed, not in the way of a stare, but in the way of a taxidermied thing. They didn't track. They simply aimed. He didn't give me a tour. He handed me the iron keys, heavy, cold, the kind of keys that feel like they belong to something larger than a door. And he said, "The building has a rhythm, Elias. Don't try to change the tempo. Stay in sync, and the debt stays small." I laughed. I thought, eccentric old man. Metaphor for noisy pipes. I was wrong about what he meant, but I wasn't wrong that there was a rhythm. Because here is what nobody tells you about a place that feels too good to be true. The price isn't in the lease. It's in what you agree to without reading. And I need to tell you what I found in the first week, because it changes everything about what happens at 3 a.m. Everything. The first Tuesday, 3:30 a.m. A sharp, rhythmic rapping on the front door. Tap, tap, tap. Delivery driver, I told myself. Wrong floor. I rolled over. Ignored it. Wednesday, louder. A heavy, deliberate thud that tilted the picture frames on the wall. Thursday, frantic. The sound of an animal clawing through wood, desperate, bleeding, trying to get in. Friday, silence at the front door. But the knocking had moved. It was inside my kitchen cabinets now. Bang, bang, bang. I threw them open expecting a rat, a burst pipe, something rational. They were empty. But the wood, the inside of the cabinet doors, was warm to the touch. Not room temperature warm, body temperature warm, like pressing your hand against someone's cheek. I started losing time. My houseplants, thriving, green, healthy on Monday, reduced to fine black ash by Tuesday morning. Not wilted, not dead. Ash, as if something had burned through them from the inside out, consuming whatever life was left, leaving only the shape. And then I found the Polaroids, hidden behind the bathroom mirror, a stack of photographs from 1994. 30 years old, brittle at the edges. Every photograph showed a man in this kitchen. My kitchen, same counter, same window, same view of the same skyline. The man looked exactly like me, but he had no mouth. Only a smooth, pale expanse of skin where his lips should have been. In his hand, a rotary phone. The cord wrapped tightly around his throat. He was smiling with his eyes. Beat! That was the moment I understood that this apartment had done this before, and I need you to sit with that. Because what I found next, buried under the floorboards, rewrote everything I thought I knew about what 3 a.m. actually is. I did what any rational, terrified person does in the modern age. I weaponized technology. Thermal sensors across every doorframe, motion-activated 4K cameras in every corner, sound frequency monitors calibrated to detect vibrations the human ear cannot register. I built a surveillance net across apartment 4C so thorough that a mouse couldn't exhale without being recorded. The feeds were perfect, sharp, clean, real-time. The video didn't cut out. It didn't glitch or go to static. It transformed. The footage showed my living room, my furniture, my walls, my floor. But on every screen, simultaneously, the furniture was ancient, draped in rotting white sheets, the walls running with something dark, and standing in the center of the room. On the screen, not in the room, not physically, was a figure, tall, impossibly thin, perfectly still. Every time I blinked, it moved 5 feet closer to the camera. When the knocking started, it leaned its face into the lens. It had no eyes. In its chest, behind a ribcage that looked like rusted iron bars, was a clock, a massive, grinding clock, gears catching and spitting sparks that looked like dying stars. And I understood then that whatever this was, it wanted to be seen. But here's what I couldn't have prepared for, what nobody who has ever lived in a place like this prepares for. Because I found the previous tenant's diary under the floorboards, and what they wrote about what this thing actually wants. It's not your fear, it's not your soul. It's something so much more specific, so much more personal, that once you understand it, you will never look at a clock the same way again. The diary was under a loose floorboard in the closet. 30 years old. The handwriting started orderly. The careful, deliberate script of someone who still believed they were in control. By the final pages, it was barely legible. A person coming apart at the seams, letter by letter. "He doesn't want your soul," it read. "He wants your time." Every 3 a.m. knock is a request for a transaction. If you acknowledge the sound, if you hear it and let it register, he takes 3 minutes. If you open the door, he takes the rest. I have given him 20 years. I am fading. My mouth is gone. I am becoming the silence. I sat on that closet floor for a long time. Because I had been checking the cameras every night for 3 weeks, I had been standing by the front door, heart hammering, holding my breath. I had been acknowledging. Every single night. I had been paying. The escalation arrived without warning. I woke detached from the wall, standing at the front door, arm raised, knuckles ready, preparing to knock back. I grabbed a sledgehammer. I tore into the hallway walls. I had to find the source. Behind the wallpaper, not brick, not plaster. A second door, identical to my front door in dimensions, but forged from cold black iron. No handle, no peephole, only a small brass mail slot at eye level. As I watched, a slip of paper slid through. A ledger. Elias Thorne. Current debt, 42 years. Payment due, tonight. 03:00 a.m. Ton shift. The dread becomes personal, intimate, inescapable. 42 years. I am 31 years old. I sat in the hallway looking at that number for a very long time. The sun outside was still up. It didn't matter. The apartment had been running its own light for days, a twilight that arrived at noon and deepened through the afternoon like a bruise, artificial, produced by the building itself, as if the architecture were absorbing daylight and converting it into something else, something it could use. The shadows had begun to acquire weight, not metaphorical weight, physical weight. I could feel them pressing against my skin when I walked through them, cold and dense like submerging a hand in deep water. And the sound from the figure's chest, the grinding, clicking, whirring of those rusted gears. I could hear it inside my own ears now. Not through the walls, not through the vents, inside my skull. Click, whir, grind. It was synchronizing with my heartbeat, adjusting the rhythm of my pulse to match a clock that was not mine. And here is the piece of this that I cannot stop thinking about. The piece that made me understand that the mouthless men in the photographs aren't ghosts. They are not the dead. They are something far worse than dead, and once I explain what they actually are and what they're trying to do every single night at 3 a.m., you will understand why I am telling you this story. Right now, before it's too late. They are the previous tenants. Every person who ever lived in apartment 4C, every person who ever signed the lease, whoever accepted the rent that was too low, whoever laughed off the eccentric landlord's warning about the building's rhythm, they are trapped in the 3-minute gap. They exist in a loop, eternal, lightless, voiceless, forced to knock on the door from the other side, not out of malice, out of desperation. Because the only way out of the gap is to trick the current tenant into opening the door, into taking their place. The mouthless man in the 1994 Polaroid was not warning me with his eyes. He was begging. Mr. Thorne came to my door that morning. He didn't look like an old man anymore. His skin was tight, luminous, 30 years younger than the last time I'd seen him. He didn't speak. He simply pointed at the iron door behind the torn wallpaper and smiled. A smile too wide for a human face, showing rows of flat silver metallic teeth. He was the one collecting the debt. He had always been the one collecting, not a landlord, a mechanism, a gear in the system, turning, grinding the minutes out of every person who ever walked through that door and thought they'd gotten lucky. He fed on the gap between what we think we're worth and what we're actually willing to pay. I have barricaded the front door with the dresser, the bed frame, a bookcase, every heavy object in the apartment stacked in a wall of furniture between myself and the wood. I know it is a performance. The knocking is not a physical intrusion. It never was. It is a frequency. A tuning fork struck at the precise pitch of human regret, designed to resonate in the cavity of your chest until your ribs vibrate at its frequency and your feet begin to move without your permission. I can feel my pulse slowing, matching. I need to tell you what happens to your body in the seconds before 3 a.m. in this apartment, because it is the most important thing I will say in this entire video. It is the thing the previous tenant's diary was trying to describe and couldn't. It is the thing that the mouthless men in the photographs are screaming with their eyes. It is the answer to the only question that actually matters. What does it feel like to lose 42 years in a single moment? Your hands go gray first, not the gray of cold skin or poor circulation. The gray of old documents, of things preserved past their natural end. Your fingernails loosen. I watched mine detach one by one, replaced beneath by flat, smooth silver discs. Like coins. Like payment. Your feet begin to move. Not because you decide to move them. Because the debt has been called and your body has already agreed to terms your mind hasn't read yet. The compulsion is a physical hook. An iron catch in your navel pulling you toward the black door, through the torn wallpaper, toward the cold. The iron door glows with a light, the color of a bruised vein, pulsing, rhythmic, beautiful in the way that the inside of a wound is beautiful, all that terrible, honest color. I touch it. It is the coldest thing I have ever felt. Colder than absence. Colder than the space between stars. The door opens. I am no longer in my apartment. I am standing on a platform in the interior of a clock tower that extends infinitely in every direction. No ceiling, no floor visible, only gears the size of planets grinding against each other in the dark, each one throwing showers of sparks that arc and die like meteor showers. Behind every gear is a door, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands. I find mine, my apartment, visible through the gear gap like a scene in a snow globe. Warm light, normal furniture, and a man, young, laughing, carrying a box into the kitchen with the easy confidence of someone who has just found the deal of a lifetime. He thinks the rent is a bargain. He doesn't know the building has a rhythm. I reach toward the glass between us. I open my mouth to scream, to warn him, to tell him, do not acknowledge the sound, do not check the cameras, do not stand at the door with your heart in your throat thinking you're being brave. My lips will not part. I run my tongue along my teeth and find smooth skin where my mouth used to be. I am the silence now. I look down at my fist. Iron gray, dense, real. I find the wooden surface of the door that separates our worlds, and I do the only thing I have left. I knock. If you're watching this, understand that I recorded it before the gray reached my shoulders, before the last of the warmth left my hands. The rule still stands. At 3 a.m., whatever is at your door is not there to hurt you. It was human once. It is desperate in the way that only the truly trapped can be desperate, which means it will use everything it has. Every sound, every familiar voice, every shape of something you love. Do not acknowledge the sound. Do not look through the peephole. Do not ask who is there. And if you ever find an apartment that feels too good, rent that's too low, a landlord with eyes that don't quite track, a building that seems to breathe when you stand still in it, barely above a whisper, walk away. The debt is already small. Don't let it grow.